Hello, it's me, Catherine Collert Page. Today I'm talking about writing process again, and I'm talking about frustration with respect to writing. You know what? Writing is frustrating. If you are frustrated, do not be alarmed. That is a part of the process. And one thing I can tell you, whether you are in an MFA program or you are a new law student, you may have been through your whole life where you were always a good writer. That was your thing. It was something that you excelled at. It was the class where you were strong. And guess what? Now everyone in that room was that person. And you were competing with all of those people if you were in law school and on a curve. In the MFA program, you're not necessarily competing on with them in the classroom, but that's who you're competing with when you're trying to sell your work, is some of the all of the people who were the top writers in their class in high school or college. So it is going to be frustrating, and you're going to work really hard. And what I often hear from students, and I often hear other professors relaying the same thing, is that students will say, I worked so hard on this. I worked harder on it than I've ever worked on anything in my life. And you're telling me that I still need to revise it, or I got such and so grade and I worked so hard on it. I Whenever I hear that, I always find those comments kind of challenging because I empathize so much. I've been there myself before, and it is something that every writer at the graduate level is going to face at some point in time, that working so hard, so very hard, and you still might not have made moot court board, or won the scholarship award in your MFA program, or won this or that contest. And the one thing that I can say is that writing is an endurance sport. So I wasn't on moot court board when I was in law school. I was a journal editor, ultimately. And ultimately, I went on to establish an 89% win record in the Texas Courts of Appeals. So my writing did win out in the end, and now I teach legal research and writing, and I've had some successes with my fiction work as well. But I'm still trying to break in with my fiction work too. And one thing that you'll see is there are so many well-known fiction writers out there who it may have taken them decades before they made it. That they were just kind of scrounging around, and then finally they broke in. And the way I think of it is that it's kind of like a triathlon. I used to do Olympic distance triathlons. So, Olympic distance triathlons, you get up at 4 in the morning to go to swim practice, where you swim perhaps more than a mile. You do really hard drills. Each time you do a drill, you get back and your coach tells you to change something else or fix something else. You run several times a week. You do anaerobic endurance intervals where you have this lactic acid flush through your body. It's very painful. You cycle every week. At one point in time, when I was in the MFA program, I was actually teaching cycling, studio cycling, and teaching spinning. I got certified in both of those, training for a triathlon. And I probably worked out, I was also teaching Pilates during that time. I probably worked out 20 hours or more a week. That's a lot. I never came anywhere remotely close to placing in my age group in an Olympic distance triathlon. And I'm okay with that, because the average person can't go out and do an Olympic distance triathlon, particularly not in California. I feel incredibly proud just to have finished a race and beat my time so many times in Olympic distance triathlons. Think about Ironmans. Think about what those people put through, and yet, only one person can win in their age group in each Ironman. And so, law school and an MFA program, they're both kind of like that. That, yeah, you're going to work your butt off. And sometimes someone who maybe they worked harder than you, maybe they don't have, let's face it, sometimes our life stuff, our major life crises come up during that time. Maybe they don't have as many life stresses as you and they did work harder, or maybe they didn't. Maybe, just somewhere along the way they had this stronger base or something clicked more for them and they beat you. But even those people go through frustration at some point in time. So, I think what can happen, it's a given that it's going to be frustrating. What can happen is that you sit down, you start getting frustrated, and that goes either one of two places. So the first place may be like, ugh, I'm frustrated. I'm not finding what I'm looking for in my research, or ugh, I don't know how to write, I don't know what this character does next, or I don't know how to get this character out of this, or I don't know how to, explain it from this character's point of view. So you get, or I just can't even find the word to use for this. So you get stuck, and it gets frustrating, and that's when that radio station KFKD that I've talked about can sometimes come on, where you're like, whoa, I'm a terrible writer. I can't write. It's frustrating. I should just stop. Why did I ever think that I could do this? I'm no good. I'm not able to do anything that I ever try to do. Blah, 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 blah. Either that or the other thing that can happen, I think, with some people is like, ooh, this assignment is hard. I feel frustrated. This assignment is really hard. My professor gave me this assignment. It's the professor's fault that it's hard. Which, in one sense, it is the professor's fault that it's hard, because the professor gave you a hard assignment to challenge you so that you can develop really specialized skills. If you are a law professor, that are going specialized skills that are going to help you to get a job making. There's a reason lawyers make a lot of money if they're good lawyers. Or in an MFA program, the professor gave you that assignment because, again, the professor's trying to challenge you so that you can develop some skills, so that you can go out there and compete, so that you can get published or sell your screenplay, or you name it. And so, in that sense, yes, it is the professor's fault, but neither of those places is necessarily the best place to go when you feel frustrated. Instead, sort of soothe that. Remind yourself that, yeah, it is frustrating, and you have to sort of keep chipping away at it until you get there, and eventually you will. It can be a difficult, painful process. I wish so much that I could just tell people something or wave this magic wand to make it not painful, but it is painful. For that very reason, it also is very rewarding once you do achieve it. And hopefully, if you look at some of the other tips here in the series, you can find some ways to make it less painful. And ultimately, the goal is that you're going to have excellent writing. Okay, write on.